Could the Dallas Cowboys have two 1,000-yard rushers during the 2022 season? All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We want to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. I am Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. He is Landon McCool. Check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. Landon, how's it going today, sir?
It's going well. We're ready to answer some questions. I know I've got a ton of questions going into this training camp, so I'm sure you guys do too. So we're going to try to figure them out together.
Yeah. All right, let's jump right into it. First one from Zach. Is there a chance we have two 1,000-yard rushers this season if Tyler Smith can play well and the overall offensive line stays relatively healthy?
Well, I mean, I think it's possible. You just don't see that kind of thing happen very often for a reason. It usually takes a lot of focus on, kind of one player carrying the ball. And even in a situation where, the Cowboys were last year, they got, I think, within 300 yards of.
They're fairly close.
I think it's possible. I think if you start getting Pollard a couple more carries a game, I think if he continues to remain explosive and have a high yards per carry, that he could get there. The question that becomes is, if the Cowboys are kind of shifting the role here a little bit to get to kind of change his touches more to receptions as opposed to carries, and will that take away from his opportunity to get 1,000 yards on the ground specifically? I think it's certainly within reach. I think it certainly could be something that if they, have that kind of plan for Pollard to become, more involved in the running game as opposed to trying to like reshift those carries and touches to catches. I think it's certainly possible. It's all going to come down to game planning and touch distribution, I think.
Yeah, I actually don't see a way that Tony Pollard gets 1,000 yards rushing unless Zeke gets hurt. Like I think the Cowboys have a different way they want to use him. Like I think ideally, like if they could get him 650 rushing yards and 615 receiving yards, like that's the ideal way to use Tony Pollard and have him be the guy that has the most, yards from scrimmage in the backfield. But I don't get the sense that the Cowboys are looking at a true 50-50 run split between Pollard and Zeke.
Yeah, I don't think they're interested in doing this necessarily. No. I think it's certainly possible and that they have the capability, and Pollard and Zeke are both certainly capable of doing that. I think it's with that kind of thing, it's about willingness to provide those number of touches on the ground, and I don't know that the Cowboys are. I think that they, like I said, if anything, they're kind of I'm thinking focusing on getting his touches in through receptions as opposed to carries now. So they maybe shift away from that more. So I think it's certainly possible, but I don't think it's likely.
All right, next question from @Jones's Babysitter. You guys have mentioned the easy button for Dak a bit this offseason. What are those plays, routes, and how do the other positional players assist that? Basically, he wants to know, what do you guys mean when we're talking about the easy button for Dak?
Well, I think it starts with providing, routes where you've got playmakers, specifically guys who can create after the catch, getting them the ball, designing plays to get them the ball in space and allow them to create. That's easy for Dak. When he has a throw to an open window to a guy that isn't very difficult to get the ball to, doesn't require a lot of time in the pocket, and is just able to kind of allow the scheme to get the guy open, and then the player to who's receiving the ball to produce the yards after catch. That is something that you see in a lot of the San Francisco offenses and all these guys, that these teams that have these players. And CeeDee Lamb is a prime example of one of these guys who is dangerous with the football in his hands. So any opportunity the Cowboys have where they are designing, whether it's rub routes or just complicated passing concepts that can get guys open versus different specific coverages, I think to me hitting the easy button means throws where Dak isn't having to throw into a tight window on a developing play that requires him to constantly, navigate a pocket. And not that he can't or shouldn't do those things. That's his job. It's just a higher percentage of letting these receivers do some of the work for Dak. So that when later, you're not feeling like you're scraping the barrel of Dak, having to pull more and more magic out of a hat.
Yeah, I would say, okay, just a bit off the top, creating easier throws for Dak doesn't mean that he's a lesser quarterback. I actually just watched the Chiefs Steelers playoff game, the wild card game, and I can't tell you how many throws Mahomes had that were at or behind the line of scrimmage, whether it was a screen pass, whether it was kind of like a delayed pass, just simple ways to get Jerick McKinnon the ball in space or Tyreek Hill the ball in space, just to get the offense going and moving. Those are okay. Like I know it sounds like we're trying to lessen the load of on Dak Prescott, but these are just ways to get the offense going. And in fact, Landon, we saw this last year with Cooper Rush when he started against Minnesota. I think the Cowboys created a lot of easy throws and easy reads and chunk plays because they knew they didn't want to put Cooper Rush into a situation where he was having to make 5 different reads. It's, hey, here's a screen to CeeDee Lamb that he's going to take 21 yards. Here's a double pass to CeeDee Lamb down the field where Cooper Rush doesn't have to do anything. Like, I don't think you need to run those all the time, but 5, 6 of those type of plays a game just to make it a little bit easier on Dak.
Do you think that Sean McVay doesn't make things easier for Stafford?
Oh my gosh, yeah, he does. Like, all his quarterbacks, right?
I mean, you're not trying to limit. It's not that you're worried about Dak. It's that you're trying to give your team every single advantage that's possible. And if there's easy money on the table to be taken, take the easy money. Yep. You don't have to bang your head with difficult plays in order to win every single snap. Like you can take some easy money here and there, and that's going to give you that much more of an advantage, so that when the time comes, if you need to make the big play, it means more, or it has more value because you've taken some body shots with some of the simple stuff, and now suddenly you're that much closer to the end zone.
It's why I think Andy Reid's one of the best coaches in the league, because he's had success with all types of quarterbacks by doing this exact same thing, right? Whether it was Donovan McNabb, Michael Vick, Kevin Cobb, Patrick Mahomes, Alex Smith, like he just gets these guys into a rhythm early in games by creating simple throws and simple reads. And by the end of the game, their confidence is up. The team is playing well. I just think Dallas can incorporate more of that this season.
I agree. I completely agree.
All right, well, I'll tell you guys about BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all of your betting needs and sports info. Find all of the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including golf, Major League Baseball, and eventually football. I know we're like 6 weeks away, but football is coming. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, next question, Lane. This one from Goran. He wants to know, if you could go back and change one moment in Cowboys history, what would you choose? Is it a game? Is it something that happened in the offseason? It was a draft pick. What would you change?
Ooh, one, huh?
I've got a couple that I want your thoughts on. You ready?
Tony dropping the football in Seattle.
Yeah, that's because you just wonder, like, is Parcells still there the next year if they win that playoff game?
How far do they go after that? They would be a very scrappy team. They weren't, look, talent wise, they weren't exactly, the 2023 Yankees, but I mean, like they definitely were I thought talented enough and a scrappy enough team that they could have advanced a little bit further. And maybe that doesn't maybe it doesn't lead to a Super Bowl or something, but maybe what it does is it gives Romo another level of confidence. It gives Parcells a reason to come back, and maybe they run it back the next year, and suddenly you're within striking distance. So I just think that there's other ones. I mean, obviously the catch comes to mind, and I think there's a couple plays from that 94 NFC championship game that the Cowboys lost to the 49ers that they probably could have figured out. that would have turned the tide there. And I'm sure that there's some offseason stuff, but to me, like, you asked the question, and the two things that instantly pop in my brain are obviously just because it's the latest one is the Dez catch that was ruled not a catch, and then obviously Tony dropping the ball on the extra point in Seattle.
Do you think they beat the Bears in 2006? Because if they would have beaten Seattle, that's who they would have played, the Bears in Chicago.
So that's the Rex Grossman team, right?
Yes.
The 2006 Rex Grossman team. They had a really great defense, didn't they? Like,
I think they were the number 3 defense.
Yeah. And Tommy, what's his name, was still really good. That defensive tackle out of OU.
Tommy Harris, yep.
Tommy Harris, yeah. So I think it would have been a tough game, but I certainly think, I mean, look, the Bears were in the Super Bowl. Like, I think that the Cowboys certainly were within striking distance of talent of that team, and they had as much as any team, as much chance as any team in the NFC that year.
Who knows? Different one for you. How about Eric Williams getting in a car accident in 1994?
Well, I mean, yeah, if you want to talk about, like, you know, people's who, and look, there have been obviously more headline stories of folks that have had unfortunate turns to their career and that sort of thing. And Eric Williams is, you know, it's maybe less sympathetic to some folks because it was a car accident there, you know, and there all the other stuff that was surrounding Eric at the time. But if you want to talk about, like, pure talent lost, Eric Williams, I think if he hadn't gotten in that car accident, like, we would be talking about him right there, if not better than Larry Allen. I think. I honestly do believe that. He was so talented. I mean, I'll tell you what, one of my favorite things watching live was seeing Eric Williams go against Reggie White.
Reggie White,
and watching Reggie White get so frustrated that the Reverend Reggie White, walking off of the Texas Stadium field that day when I was, I think, 12 or 13 years old, was flipping off all the Cowboys fans and cursing like a sailor, not so much like a reverend. So that just shows you the kind of talent that someone like Eric Williams had.
Well, you just wonder because, like, in 1994, after Eric Williams gets hurt, the Cowboys end up being the 2 seed in the NFC, right? And you know, they have to go to Candlestick and play that game against the 49ers, you know, instead of playing it at home. And then in that game, I think it was, Larry Allen started at right tackle. And, you know, I mean, it's Larry Allen, but if you can have Larry Allen playing guard and Eric Williams playing, you know, right tackle, and now all of a sudden it's not Derek Kennard starting at right guard, I think you might win the Super Bowl because I think everybody knew that was the Super Bowl. All right. I mean, they were just going to run through whoever they played in the Super Bowl.
I dare anyone to find a better right side than healthy Eric Williams and Larry Allen. I dare you. I dare you to even suggest it. Just two mean, strong dudes who just dominated that whole side of the field and really, again, even to this day, don't quite get the amount of credit that they deserve for what they did for that team and how dominant they made them.
You don't think Andre Gerard and Solomon Page match up? Or Torrin Tucker and Rob Petiti?
I don't want to rehash all that terrible offensive line. I mean, all the guys that we went through.
Oh well. All right, let's get to some more of your questions. A couple people wanted to know about breakout candidates. So this is the way I'm going to break it down for you. Give me somebody who can go from a reserve player to a good starter, and somebody who can go from a good starter to Pro Bowl or All-Pro.
So reserve to a good player, and then so I think the best candidate for the reserve to a good player would be Malik Hooker. Because I think you look at a situation where he was kind of the third safety there. He was rotating in. You started to see those flashes. You started to see some of the Malik Hooker stuff that you saw early in his career, or in college as well, and as he started to flash. And I think that's why the Cowboys felt really comfortable about re-signing him and letting the other guys walk. So I think Hooker, with more snaps, more opportunity, another healthy offseason, another season in the same system, I think there's an opportunity for Hooker to take a step that he hasn't ever had a chance to in his NFL career at this point. So that would be my choice there. Do you have one there so I can think about the other one?
Yeah, a couple of different ones there. Like, and we actually talked about a few of these guys yesterday. I think Chauncey Golston could go from a guy that's playing 20 snaps a game to, hey, he's our starter at right defensive end, our base starter, and we feel really good about him. Or Dorrance Armstrong. Dorrance Armstrong goes from a part-time starter to somebody who's getting 8 sacks a year. Like, I think that's a very good one. For my good starter to all pro level player, I think the obvious answer is CeeDee Lamb, right? I think there's a very realistic chance that by the end of this season, we are saying it's Jamar Chase, it's Justin Jefferson, and CeeDee Lamb. Like those are, and Cooper Kupp. Like those are the top 4 receivers in the league because he's already established himself as a good receiver. But going into year 3, when he's going to get a lot of opportunities, and if he can capitalize on that, why couldn't he have a 1,400-yard season with 14 touchdowns?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think that that's within the range of possibilities, and he's going to get a ton of opportunities. And listen, a lot of the folks that are out there that do a lot of the projections on this stuff, that look at all the situations, it's hard not to get excited about what CeeDee Lamb can provide as an opportunity, specifically in the fantasy realm, because he's going to have so many snap opportunities, he's going to have so many targets, and he's just an exciting player that looks to be kind of on his way to being an elite player.
Really quickly on CeeDee, but
yeah.
I don't necessarily think the stats is what's going to make him a top 3 receiver. Like if he gets 1,600 yards this year because he's getting 180 targets because the Cowboys literally have nobody else to throw to, that doesn't necessarily make him a good receiver. For me, if he has 1,200 yards, but you can count on him, like he's just money on third downs, and he's so good with when they need him, and they need him to close out games by winning on a 3rd and 9. Like that's what they need more so than a guy that's going to lead all fantasy stats.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, again, you're certainly not hearing me preach about fantasy outlooks and projections, but I think that the point is that there's a reason that these folks, as much as I hate fantasy football, I respect the fact that fantasy folks know what they're talking about as far as a potential targeting, where the trends are going on teams' offenses, because that's their job. And I think that there's a reason that there's smoke there with CD, and I think it's because of all the things you mentioned, the increase in targets, the increase in his skill set. I think it's more the skill set increase is what I think is going to be more important for the Cowboys. I'm going to kind of throw a curveball one here, and this is just because this is not an easy thing to predict. What if another year in a healthy offseason and another year in a system that he's comfortable with has Leighton Vander Esch playing at a level that is closer to where he was as a rookie than he has been these last few years? I don't think that that's outside the realm of possibility. I think that you saw when Leighton struggles, it's a lot of correctable stuff. Most of the time, it's we've dealt with health and him kind of still dealing with this or that. You get a completely healthy offseason of Leighton Vander Esch, a motivated player, a player who's comfortable in what he's being asked to do, and he physically has the ability to do what he did his rookie year. I don't think that he's lost that. So is there a possibility that he could get back to a situation where he's closer to where he was his rookie year? I don't know if that's an all-pro, but I think if we're talking about a guy who was a starter, a capable starter, who could potentially hop up to Pro Bowl consideration, while playing next to Micah Parsons, I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility while we're waiting for Cox, we're waiting for these other guys to kind of get back on the field, that Leighton Vander Esch just really pops and kind of has a career resurgence at this point.
Yeah, that's a really good one, actually. Leighton Vander Esch is only 25 years old.
Yeah.
And we to his credit, we saw somebody by the end of the year was playing better. Now, I don't know if that was the same caliber as he was like during his rookie season, but it wasn't a problem having him on the field. In 2019 and 2018, there were moments at the start of the 2021 season, there were moments where he was borderline unplayable. By the end of the season, it was almost an asset for your defense. So I think it's possible. Should mention, last 7 games of the season, only 2 missed tackles for Leighton Vander Esch, and he played a bunch of snaps over that time. this is the first offseason in how long where he hasn't had a big injury that he's coming off.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think the missed tackles you mentioned, that's huge. Like, because that, to me, that has been the difference between young Leighton Vander Esch and the guy we've been getting the last few years. Young Leighton Vander Esch didn't miss tackles. Like, that was the thing that we talked about, is that he was so wide, his wingspan was so wide. When he arrived, it was hard for players to escape. So if he can get back to that, I think we could get a guy that, like I said, maybe not an all-pro, maybe not quite a Pro Bowler, but quite just short of that would be amazing when you're considering that you're pairing him next to Michael Parsons.
Yeah, to Vander Esch's credit, his tackle rate in 2018 as a rookie, 9.2, and it was actually better as the year went on. 2019, 14.8, 2020, 13.2. Last year, 8.9, trending in the right direction. So if he can keep it around there and he can stay relatively healthy, we'll see.
And maybe a little bit more cleaner up front. That's the other added element too. With a little bit better defensive tackle depth, maybe he stays a little bit cleaner as well. And maybe that means a gangbuster year for a guy that is still kind of looking for a way to turn this short-term contract into kind of a bigger contract from somebody.
He didn't miss a game last year. That's kind of surprising, right? And then in 2018, his rookie year, he played all 16. So he has 2 seasons where he's played every game. It's that, you just wonder about the neck. Like, how long is the neck going to hold up? But I think that's a good call by you. All right, last question for us before we head out. And this is a very simple one from Ross.
Oh, boy.
If the Cowboys miss the playoffs, should Mike McCarthy be fired?
Yeah, I think if the Cowboys miss the playoffs, I
would have a little caveat. Let's say Dak plays 14 games this year, 14 or more.
All of it hinges on how it happens, I think. I just don't think that, not making the playoffs isn't enough information as far as I'm concerned to fire somebody. But yeah, like if, let's say, Dak missed some significant time with an injury, or
the offensive line is just completely decimated by an injury, right?
If there's some kind of crazy level of circumstance that's undeniable, then I think you could talk yourself into rolling it back one more year, especially in the light of kind of how they've been arranging things a little bit. So,
but if they stay relatively healthy and Dak plays 15, 16, 17 games and they go 8-9 and they just lose a bunch of close games,
it's time to blow it up at that point.
It's time to move on, right?
Yeah.
And if we get to that point, I'm not even sure what the point would be to holding on to like Dan Quinn and Kellen Moore, because you're not really changing or improving things. Like, this is time for a full blown reset, right? Like, time to move on.
Yeah. I think, they have almost seemed like they're kind of prepping for that a little bit too. If they had to make that move,
well, it's weird. It feels like they could very easily blow things up after this year and they would be in a good situation cap wise to do it. But they're also in a situation where, hey, if they get to like the NFC Championship game and they just need to make 1 or 2 more moves to go win a Super Bowl, they're also in a position to do that as well. It's very weird the way they position themselves.
It's not weird. It's on purpose, and I think that this is a lot of the reason that people should keep in mind that they are sitting on money like they're Scrooge McDuck, right? Is because it gives them the opportunity, the flexibility to survive not only a negative season, but surviving success. Right. And being able to like have success and re-sign the guys you need or to sign new guys to take that next step. Right.
Yeah. They're just not going all in for this season, like the way some other teams have certainly in the AFC, a couple in the NFC. Like, they just haven't pushed all their chips to the table, because I think they want to see Mike McCarthy in 1 more year and see what Dak looks like in the system 1 more year before really, really going all in.
I'll also add that I think that they don't have the same powder that other teams do to go all in this year. I think that's part of it too, is that if you're going to go all in, you're going against 5 other teams that are going all in, but they've got more money and more, assets. Then you're not really doing anything except making a mess for yourself down the road. So if you feel like next year is the better year to do that, because of the contract situation, because of the dead money situation, because of the increase in the cap, lots of reasons to think that 2023 would be the year for that.
Yes.
I can understand that, how they would kick the can 1 year because it's a better like it's a better situation, a more advantageous situation for them if they decided they wanted to go the route of going.
Yeah, I mean, we've been saying this for a while, but everything is kind of pointing to 2023 where they don't have to give anybody a big contract yet, right? CeeDee Lamb will be on year 4 of his rookie contract. Diggs and Parsons both entering year 3, so you don't have to pay those guys yet either. You can get off Ezekiel Elliott. Michael Gallup's cap number will actually be, pretty realistic and not hard to deal with. They're going to have a lot of cap space. They could really improve the roster next year if they wanted to, but that, to me, it really seems like they're circling 2023 as the year to go for it.
I agree. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. That is it for today's show. Thank you guys for tuning in. As always, you can download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And we want to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen of the day. Now make your second listen to Locked On NFL podcast. Our national NFL experts and insiders keep fans dialed in with the biggest stories and the latest news from around the league, because an offseason doesn't equal a break in the action. You can follow Landon at McCoolBCB. I am at Marcus_Mosher. We'll be back on Wednesday to talk about the Cowboys linebackers, including Leighton, Vander, Esch, Micah Parsons, maybe a little bit of J-Ron Curse even in there as well.
Ooh.
See you guys back here tomorrow.